But I want to start by asking you this very simple question. What are the characteristics, in your view, or in your memory, of great teachers from your school or your university or your professional life? The people who made a great impact on you, helped you learn. What were they like, and what did they do that made you feel they were so good? And I need the microphone, I think, Simon, don't I? Now, I think everybody's going to have something to say. I'm going to start at the back of the room, because I think the people at the front have had far too much time already. So, yes.
Teachers who were interactive with me and who saw the materials or issues in the level of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. Two very important points: degree of interaction between the teacher and the children, or the students, and material that was well judged to your level of knowledge, your existing level of knowledge and understanding. Okay, great. What else? Yes, Emmanuel.
Such teachers always have good grasp of the subject matter.
Okay, they're experts in what they do, and they know what they know their subject. Yes. Lula, welcome.
Yes. Subject make easier his concept by real life examples. It's very important.
They bring a subject to life with real life relevant examples which help you understand.
Someone who is honest, and if he doesn't know something, it recognizes it.
And what does that teacher who doesn't know something, what do they do?
He says he's going to investigate,
yes,
for a posterior answer, but doesn't try to invent something
Very
in the
good.
moment.
Yeah, yes. Or of course he can ask the students to find out. That's another way you can put the problem back. Yes, one more here.
Thank you. My good teacher, he insists to be sure that we understand what he wants to be from us to know. Even he gave us a small information. Thank you.
A small information.
But he makes sure that we understand what he wants to tell us.
Okay, that's very interesting. That there has to be a kind of signpost or a label which says what we are doing today is, and this is how we get there. Something like that.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely. Very good. Yes.
They do sample example for the issue, for the information.
Example.
Example, simple
yes.
example.
Yes, very good. Very important. Some more, such enthusiasm for your good teachers. Right.
My favorite teacher would be a constant learner, they upgrade their knowledge constantly, and so that I can get back to them for the newer things also. They are confident and they are entertaining.
Very good. That's quite a challenge, isn't it? Yes, but she's right.
To be charismatic, use body language well,
Okay.
and use his voice well, not to be monotonic, and we all fall asleep from him.
Yes, it's just as I thought. I think I shall go home. You know the answers to all the questions. Yes.
One of my professors, whom I would think that he was one of the people who influenced me a lot, was adopting a teaching style which was based on challenging your ideas. It was also always that, Mohammed, what do you think about this? And then I said, oh yeah, professor, I think this and this. And then he asked, is he right or wrong? Do you think that his opinion is right or wrong? Why do you think this is right? And this kind of challenging is really mind-blowing. It makes you think and think critically about issues and build your intellectual capacity.
Right. Right. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, one or two more. Yes, we've written
I
the
think
book.
the teacher, the good teacher, will push me to make more research and not to give me the basic. And after I will make my research and I will learn more when I will do it myself. He will not give me all the things, but the basics. It should be clear, should be a lot of discussion with the students and not be academic relation and courses.
Okay. Yes, motivates you to want to know more. Yes. I mean, to develop for you a passion for your subject. Let's just stop for a moment. You use the word academic, and I think this is very interesting and it's very important, because there you were associating academic with an unattractive, dull style. Can we just, we need to bear in mind that much of what we have done in the past has been academic, in the sense that it's seriously intellectual, based on research and all those kinds of things. And we shouldn't use academic as a negative, but an academic style of teaching is not always an appropriate one, is it? I mean, that's the point you're making. I think it's very important, but we don't want to sound as though we're criticizing academics and intellectuals. That's not the question, of course, at all. Okay, one or two more, and then we'll stop, because I have some more questions to ask you as well.
Should be a good orator and keeps eye-to-eye contact and should be confident.
Yes, okay, very good. A good orator should have a good style of delivery, and she's talking about eye contact with the audience. We'll maybe examine some more of these things, because some of these are truly critical to good teaching, I think. And we must also bear in mind one thing. You talked about charisma, and you talked about oratory. And of course, not everybody who is a teacher has those particular qualities. They're not, in that sense, dramatic personalities. But we still need to think about the qualities they need to have when they may not have that sort of particular energy. Okay, you're going to give me another avalanche of responses to my next question, because the next question is, what are the characteristics of bad teachers? And of course, many of the characteristics are the reverse of what we've just been. No eye contact, a dull academic style, no motivation, all those sort of things. But can you think of some other things which characterize what you regard as bad or ineffective teaching? Yes?
If he is not interested or enthusiastic about the idea, this boredom will be transferred to the listeners.
Yes. Good teachers have a passion for their subject, don't they? Yes. They are not doing something that's just merely routine. Yes, yes. Yes. Oh, you have some bad examples. Okay, let's have South America's now. Yes, come on.
When they use like difficult words, and like they can't explain you in a different way, if you don't understand. It's like...
Yes. Overcomplicated language, not suited to the audience, not explained. Absolutely.
Someone who is intolerant with difference of opinion.
Oh, very good. Intolerant of difference of opinion, yes. Or can I add to that? Intolerant of criticism at all. Someone who challenged the language, for example. So you need, yeah, very good. I mean, that's very important. But somebody who's intolerant of criticism of ideas, the exact opposite of what Mohammed was saying, where the whole ethos was to challenge and criticize and develop. Yes.
The professor doesn't stand in there and just read the presentation. The presentation is a guide, not for read it exactly. I think that's a bad teacher.
Reading your presentation.
Only reading. Yeah.
Yes. Terrible. And I have to say, the best presenters do that sometimes. They stand like this, and you should never stand with your back to the audience for a start. Yes.
A presentation with description only. Too long tests.
On the slide?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes.
For there isn't space for question.
No space for questions. Gosh, yes. Do you want to go on, Jamila?
don't know the audience, so don't know what is expected.
What they are expecting, yes, okay, very good, yes. Yes, Sharon, I'm sorry, you've been waving.
Teachers who are unapproachable after the session, because sometimes some people like to go back and discuss, so if the person seems unapproachable, that can be a barrier.
Okay, very good. I think do you want to add one more? Or, I see you twitching.
I think to succeed, to reach to any result, you have to make a target before start as a need satisfaction. So before going presentation, he must to know what is the need, or he can ask what you need from this subject. Yes. So the teacher or the representative, he can satisfy what you need. Maybe you talk about something point valuable, but I'm not interested about.
Yes, or sometimes if you know it already, that's a real problem if you have a mixed
audience. It will
audience.
be more boring if I know it already.
Yes, sure. But just tell me, this is a technique. If you have to respond to that, if you have a mixed audience of people you don't know very well, maybe on the first day of a course, for example, or in a big conference, as a good presenter or teacher, how do you take account of the fact that in your audience there will be all kinds of different levels of knowledge? What can you do in order that somebody who knows what you're going to talk about is not going to be bored but might actually be committed to the session? What's the technique for dealing with that variability within an audience? How would you begin to make sense of that?
To ask questions with the different levels of the complexity, and then see how some representatives are answering, and due to their answers, just decide the level of their knowledge.
Yes, I mean, that's a perfect answer. Asking questions of different, or maybe the same questions, but listening to the variable complexity of the answers you get. And you can very quickly then, can't you, begin to judge where the audience is?
Because there are some questions that are not that are uncertain and not very transparent to understand. But some part of audience begin to discuss it, but it remains uncertain for another part of the
Right.
audience.
Let's keep on this a moment, because I think it's very important in relation to expectations. Thank you very much. What do you do if you find that there are a number of people in your audience whose knowledge and experience is at a higher level than the level of the content of your presentation or your teaching? So people who really already know what you're teaching or know more than you were going to do. How would you deal with that to maintain their motivation and commitment?
I'd ask for their input. They help me to do the presentation and add something.
Yes, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking of, but there may be other answers too.
Exchange experience.
Very good. Exchange experience, yes. And we've dealt there with some very complex issues, because one of the problems with an audience that the presenter or the teacher is not making contact with is that you can alienate 10 or 20% of your audience and they think their time has been wasted because they know this, or and they're not involved. Another 10 or 20% can be alienated because they don't understand what you're talking about, because your level is just that little bit too high for them. And so this tiny little bit of research at the beginning of a session can help enormously. And people who already know a lot of things will be pleased to be involved in helping or answering questions. And always in an audience, there are people who have the answer to almost any question you want to ask. And if you can value them by finding them and getting them to answer the question, of course, they will be much more committed to the whole process. Okay, lots of very important stuff there. And, I mean, you know, what we're trying to do is to avoid this. Yes? And I want... Have you ever been there? And just tell me...
This can result even after a heavy lunch.
Well...
So avoid heavy lunch.
Avoid-
However good the presenter may be.
I will challenge you to that. I'll give you a heavy lunch and then give you a presentation. And then we shall see how active you have to be. Okay, I want you just to do a quick analysis of this. What are maybe 2 or 3 of the principal causes of this kind of effect on an audience? 1 or 2 or 3 of the principal causes of this kind of... Oh.
Monologues.
What?
Monologue.
Monologues. Okay, so but why does a monologue have this effect? Why does it make people exhausted and tired? Okay, so it's first of all, it's a lack of variable stimuli, visual, audio, and all that. Yes. What else?
Boring content, irrelevant.
Boring or irrelevant content. Yes.
I think also complex content when the presenter does not go back and sense that the people does not understand it and try to re-explain it and just go on and continue explaining this complex content.
So there is no connection in the process of learning between the teacher and the audience. The teacher is doing something which is not in any way connected, empathetically connected to how the audience is feeling or what they want. Yes. Yes.
Maybe long-time presentation.
Good. That's another thing I think we need to remember about. The attention span of most people, even highly motivated people, the length of time they can really concentrate, even if they're highly motivated, is actually quite short. Probably 30 or 35 minutes, you know, as a single section of time. And after that, our capacity to attend falls off, and it may come back again, but it means that you're more than that time, you're going to be losing something somewhere, unless you have quite exceptional entertainment, of course. And I'm perfectly well aware, and you are, I'm sure, that in many conferences and in many universities around the world, academic sessions, lecturing, are 1, 2, and 3 hours sometime, with no interaction. And of course, this is a ridiculous activity, wasteful, stupid waste of human life and time. And that's certainly, in my experience, is one of the main reasons, is the lack of connection. The lecturer is just doing something, maybe reading something, you know, the chapter from the book or last year's notes, and has no idea what's going on out there in the, at the back of the room particularly. I teach a class in Thailand of pharmacists each year. Last year it was 240 undergraduate students. This year it was reduced to 150, I'm happy to say. And because I'm the kind of teacher I am, my goal during a week, I have them for 5 days, my goal is to ensure that every one of those students during the week has made a contribution, an active verbal contribution. So way in the distance, you know, the back row are the bad boys who've got their mobile phones and their laptops. So I have one of these, and I'm racing up and down the aisles, giving it. If I see somebody falling asleep after lunch, they have a question and a microphone. And so the expectation that there is a degree of activity and interaction, I think, is very important. And that ultimately is what will determine whether a teacher has an impact, is whether or not people are engaged with what they're doing. So this is what we want, of course. We want students who are energized and enthusiastic and feel pleased and gratified by what they're doing. Okay, now some more questions for you before I go on any further than this. What is the purpose of teaching and presenting and all this kind of stuff? What is the highest level purpose? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to do in this course and you in
I think to share our knowledge in a field and share our knowledge or our ideas with someone.
Okay, that's the process. What's the outcome we're looking for?
Make us resourceful.
Knowledge, I think.
Development.
I think that's closer to it, yes. Would you like to have a go? Yes?
Make us resourceful.
I think that's very important. Make our students resourceful. I want to push that a bit further, though. What else? Yes. Tell us.
Improve human life.
Oh gosh. Oh, all right. Yes. Yes. Okay. That's wonderful. Improve human life, she says. Yes, that's absolutely at the top. I hope we can make a contribution to that, but perhaps a little bit less.
Build capacities.
Sorry?
We want to build capacities.
Please, I'm sorry, I'm not listening properly.
We want to build or improve the capacity of our audience.
Very good. That's very close. Another one, yes?
Transforming the knowledge and the practice.
Say that again, please.
Transform the knowledge and the practice.
Transform knowledge into practice. Yes, this is all good stuff. Oh, go on. Yes, well, then we'll get...
If we teach something to somebody, we are waiting for any response from him, then we can say him, we teach you, you know, you had some experience, you were the audience on these topics, and we are waiting for you, the response, the action done in such field you had your lectures.
Okay.
For example,
yes.
in pharmacovigilance, then UMC can say, why don't you send, so for example, at least reports, and you know the way to send it, you know the rules you should follow.
And why don't you have beautiful ADR reporting forms?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Perhaps I think that it could be like to build up criteria, because if you improve your skills, you have the capacity to discern and to help making decisions and building up your mind.
Okay, lots of very good stuff there, and I think what I think is very important is that teaching is not about simply transmission of information and facts. Very often that's how it's done. The lecturer or the teacher seems to be under the assumption that the job involves passing out, transmitting a lot of stuff, and I don't think that's what it's about. I think it's about stimulating people to learn. So that what you say, just like you were saying, fires the mind and the imagination of the individuals, and they want to hear more and do more and learn more about this. They themselves become the agents of change and learning, so that we are motivating people to do that. And I think one of the other things, and this is very much relating to what Mohammed was saying, and it's something you don't find in schools and in many universities, especially in Asia, I think it's the development of critical minds. It's helping people, helping our students to develop independent, active, critical, analytical, positive minds that can solve problems, whatever they are, intellectual problems, practical problems, whatever it may be. But to go away with the skills, some knowledge, but basically to have the intellectual and the personal, the emotional capacity to face the world in a way that's intelligent and positive and critical in the sense of analyzing and not accepting everything that happens. So that you go out of here, in a sense, some way changed, not so much by a new implant of knowledge, because knowledge is easy in some respects. You know, it's on videos, it's in books. Facts are easy. What is not easy is being a positive, energetic, creative, productive person. And I think that's what we're mostly trying to do, is to help people to be that. It may be in academic life. It may be to go off and do research in some very obscure aspect, but that we give them the tools and the inspiration and the imagination to do it. And it's helping other people to learn. which is the subtitle of this session. I think that's what we're here for. It's not to do anything for them, but it's to set them off on a path of exploration and adventure and achievement. And that's the other thing, I think, which is very difficult. We have to remember that learning is an internal process. That people only learn when they are internally motivated, when they're stimulated from outside, but they have a desire to learn. We can't force people to learn. We have to create an environment in which people want to learn and then will love learning, ultimately. I mean, obviously, if we're in an institution, you want an institution in which people love learning. And it's passing on something of that inspiration and the skills to learn effectively, I think, which is what we should all be doing. So this takes us a long way, doesn't it, from traditional lectures and from long periods of students sitting for 3 hours listening. The other thing I think, what do you think I mean when I say, I don't think a teacher or a presenter should ever do anything when being in the room with the audience does not add value to the task. And now, I'm not sure if I can make this question simple enough, clear enough to, but it seems to me that one of the things my responsibility and your teacher's responsibility, I'm sorry, I'm banging my microphone and I shall stop that, Simon, I'm very sorry. One of the things we have to do is to make sure that if you are in the room and I am in the room, what I am going to do with you adds value to the material we have. So that if I have a chapter of a book, which this is this week's study, I'm not going to read the chapter to you because that doesn't add any value to your reading it yourself. But if we're dealing with this chapter, we have to handle it in a way where I add value to your experience of it. So that we're not just doing something you could do at home or in the hotel or anywhere else. And I think that's a question we always have to ask when we're planning teaching. How much value am I adding to this learning experience by being in the room with my students? And if there's no extra value, you shouldn't be doing it. And we've tried this with the videos, for example. We think there's a whole bunch of stuff which it's better for you to read and see on videos. And then we can add value to our relationship and this precious time we have together. So I think that question we need to ask, and I think if you look at many teachers' activities, they do not add value. They're just doing a routine, going through textbooks or going whatever it may be. And that question, how much value am I adding to the experience of my students? So I've got another 35 slides or something, but we've covered all of this, most of it, but we'll go on and talk about a few things. And I'm not going to concentrate on the superficial level. I'm particularly, after your comment about charisma, this is a concept I'd like you to think about a bit. That good teaching is a kind of theatre. That it's not just an ordinary, everyday, living room activity. And that what we have to do is to try and make present our material and our ideas in ways which are theatrical, to the extent that they are not just everyday, ordinary experiences and ideas and methods. We should try and find ways which add some drama. That teaching should have some presence, some energy, some profile. And this does not just mean it has to be loud or noisy, but it has to have a kind of rhythm to it and a kind of artistic creativity to it as well as all the other stuff. And one of the reasons that students fall asleep is because there's no theatre. There's no entertainment, there's no variety, there's no comedy, You know, all those sorts of things. And I think this is quite helpful. It's certainly true for conference presentations. That if you have 500 people and you are going to touch the minds of all of those, you have to do something which is larger than life, isn't it? You can't just stand there and say, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen." I mean, you can't do it. You have to do something which is bigger, larger than life, which has an element of theatre to it. And this again is an idea we could talk about a lot. And I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I mean, if you want to wear makeup and frocks and wigs and all this stuff, your students will love you. You know, you can go to the extreme and do theatre in the big way. But I'm talking about something slightly more restrained, as you know. But from time to time, a wig or a frock would be very good. You should surprise your students sometimes. I mean, that's, you know, the whole notion. So, yes, a bit of theatre. A bit of theatre sometimes, I think, is really good. Verbal skills, all this stuff. Is there one on there which you think is most important? It's rather obvious, but I've had 5 minutes without interaction, so I've got to get back and wake you up. One of the, yes.
Clear.
What? Okay, right. They're all important, yes. But if we think about the more sophisticated skills of teaching, what one there would you choose? Being clear is a basic one. You know, if you're not clear, well, no point.
Appropriate.
Okay, all right. I think I'm not asking a very good question. I think the one I was particularly thinking about is this illuminating complexity. It seems to me one of the things that good teachers do is they make very difficult things seem simple and elegant. That you come out and you think, wow, yes, of course, you know, I understand that. And that's a very great skill, to take the complex language of science or pharmacovigilance or causality or philosophy and to illuminate it in a way which makes people have that kind of, oh, yes, that moment of understanding.
It's only that much.
What?
It's only that much.
Yes, yes. So that's something to think about too, and it goes back to what you were saying about jargon and language and all those things, that you can find ways of explaining complex ideas in ways which people can. Okay, non-verbal behavior, very important. Yes.
I don't know what the word jargon.
Oh. No, jargon is the specialized vocabulary that every science has. Pharmacovigilance is a jargon word, and adverse drug reaction in some respect is a jargon phrase. It has a special meaning. Interaction, contraindication, these are all specialist vocabulary for pharmacovigilance, which people outside don't know. And it's like you were saying, don't use jargon and stuff. Yes, please.
One thing that's important about jargon is when ordinary words are used in a special sense in a discipline.
Yes.
For example, if I ask you, what do you mean? If I ask you, what do you mean by risk? What do you answer? What is risk?
Okay.
Sorry? What?
One which has potential to cause harm.
Okay. That's, most people agree with that?
Potential to cause harm.
You don't agree with that, Mohammed?
What do you think?
Not necessarily harm.
Sorry?
Not necessarily harm.
Right.
Okay.
And those are the two answers that
Yes.
I might expect.
Yes.
You obviously have been talking to epidemiologists, right? Risk for many people, in the dictionary, you would find that it is the possibility for harm. But in epidemiology, risk is any probability. It's the risk of just the risk of something happening. And it's very subtle difference and important, though. If you're talking, for instance, to the public and you're an epidemiologist, you can get yourself into big trouble.
Yes, yeah, very good. So thanks for the question. You have a word for jargon, I'm sure, in Arabic for this kind of language too, don't you? Yes. What is it? What is it in Arabic?
مصطلحات.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Agreement.
I shall not be able to repeat it, but thank you. One thing on this slide I'd like you to comment about. I'm upset, amongst other things, apart from forms that I'm obsessed about, I'm also obsessed about room layout. Now, why should that be an issue that we should always think about when we're teaching or presenting? What impact does the layout of a room have on the psychology and the energy levels of an audience?
You may be more or less willing to participate just because of the layout.
Okay, and can you think of a particular kind of layout which has an inhibiting or a facilitating effect? I mean, why do some of different layouts have different effects?
If we are in a round table facing each other, it's easier to discuss.
Okay, yes. Any other comments on this question? Yes. Oh, wait.
No, I think if you mean by layout the construction of the way the tables are put in, I think it gives the presenter an opportunity to think how he is going to present his material. Because, for example, if he can't have this
aisle,
in the middle, then probably it would be not as much interactive and personal. That if you have just classroom and you have to give the phone, you can't just go and give them the mic and wake them up. And
very good. Okay. All right, just one more.
Okay. It's supposed to be has a talent to know how is the body language, to be more active with the others watching or listening to him.
And the layout of the room will help or inhibit that. Yes, I mean, I think that is also true. It's very close to what Mohammed is saying. I mean, I think the first, if you have straight rows in a lecture theatre, they are an expression of hierarchy, okay? They actually are an expression of hierarchy. All authoritarian leaders have tall stages at the front and huge straight rows going back away into the distance. Straight rows are a manifestation of hierarchy. Power, no power, okay? And that's how you feel when you go into a big lecture theatre with straight rows and no aisles and so on. You feel, in some respects, disempowered, that you're not a participant, you're an observer, you know, those kinds of things. It's different in a theatre because the expectations are different. I mean, a cinema or a theatre, because that's different. And it has an enormous impact. Wherever we can, we try to seat people on round tables with 4, 5 or 6 people at them, because they feel more relaxed, because they can see each other, they can chat, and it's quite easy. And it's also much more sociable. It's a more communal, interactive kind of environment. And even here, we've moved the tables to a little bit of an angle. Straight rows, you can only see the back of the heads of other people. You can't look at them or listen to them in an intelligent way, and you can't, and this is interesting, of course, you can't actually plot. You can't have a conspiracy with straight rows because you can't really look at each other and wink and go, this sort of stuff. You know, I mean, it inhibits the natural rhythms of human relationships. So the less rigid the learning environment is, in some respects, the more productive it can be. So it's something to think about. We at the UMC, for example, whenever we're planning a big conference, we try to find ways of loosening up the room arrangement so that it's not formal and inhibiting. And this is one very economical way of doing it. You can actually do it slightly more. And if you think of parliaments, democratic parliaments tend to be facing each other or in a circle. And that's the same thing, that it's a symbol of the nature of the relationships in the room. So never accept the layout of a room as it is if it does not suit your purposes or if it sends the wrong messages. Understanding the audience, well, we've talked a good deal about that, and we could spend another hour on that, but you need this whole, great teachers have a connection with their audiences. Good teachers also understand the different moods of their audiences. You know, there'll be some cynical, skeptical, bored, and you have to have some, very quickly get some grasp of what is happening in your audience. Who are the ones who are going to be difficult or critical or who are, you know, who need to be won round or engaged and so on. And lots of techniques and skills for doing that. And this whole business about making connections with the audience, very much to do with eye contact and watching for all the evidence, the non-verbal evidence. People don't have to be talking to be telling you a whole story about what they're feeling. And the positive non-verbal, I'm getting wonderful positive non-verbal response from these two in the second row, for example, who are nodding their heads and grinning while I'm talking. I think, okay, that's fine. You know, still awake and some agreement and all that stuff. So it's very, very useful. That's to do with, you don't just read stuff from last year or chapters and all that stuff. And what is the purpose? New knowledge or skills, encourage critical thinking or efficient reflective practice. Because occasionally a training is not the same as what I was saying again about this ambitious intellectual. Training will be to help people acquire reproducible skills. And that is a slightly different technique. But they still need to be motivated and interested and stimulated, of course.
Understanding. It was mentioned as a word once, I think. And that's, I mean, you talked about complexity. But the issue of understanding is clearly very important. And how do you find out if your audience is understanding you is an important matter.
I think that is indeed an important matter. Whether they've understood, whether the aims that you maybe jointly. How? All right. Let's ask the question. How do you? This is going to be very superficial. But how do you find out if your audience understands what's going on?
Just looking at face or.
Yes, the non-verbal feedback is very powerful.
Maybe if you are a little bit jogging or maybe smile on a face, it means that they were listening to you. Yeah. If they are, I don't know how to say in English, looking like this, yes, it means they understand you, and it could be enough.
That is a very important first level. You can very easily tell that, and you can tell the opposite. You can very easily see if people are perplexed or bored or uncertain by what you said, very easily on their faces. But there is another level, which I think Rafe is probably talking about as well, which is perhaps a deeper understanding, because somebody might think they understand it, but actually have missed the point. Yes? So, yes, Sharon.
I think this can be achieved by asking questions in an indirect way, not so directly, did you understand me, and what is this, but in an indirect way.
Yes, I mean, asking questions is clearly one of the most important ways of doing it. And this applies in practice, of course, to pharmacists. And not doing exactly what you said not to do. You know, after a pharmacist has explained how to take a medicine, and he says to a patient, do you understand? And the patient says, yes. And that's very common. But exactly what you're saying, the pharmacist should be saying to the patient, can you just tell me what I've told you? And of course, that's really what you have to do, the second level, isn't it? And then all the other stuff, watching people.
Also, for example, ask for examples of about what you are talking. You are talking about something, and do you come to your mind any example related with this?
Yes, very good. To ask people for illustrations or examples of something you're talking about.
By giving a short surprise quiz.
A short surprise quiz, yes, okay. that sounds, yeah, quite. With
practical classes.
Yes,
is
practical
another one,
classes,
yeah.
yes, and, of course. You could even do role
play,
stuff,
yeah.
yes, yes. And prizes for the quiz. Yes, something exciting, yes. So, we're at the end of the time for this session, and I think for my own 2 or 3 more minutes only, I think we've covered all the important stuff. And what we haven't covered is some of the much more detailed techniques. And for example, one we've been talking about in relation to you is how does a presenter or a teacher phrase questions which genuinely stimulate answers and take the learning forward? Because it's possible to ask questions which nobody will answer, not because they don't know the answer, but because the question doesn't give you a hook, doesn't hook you somehow. Do you know that? You sit there and you think, oh. So the skill of asking questions which penetrate like a hook for a fish, you know, it gets into the brain and drags you. That's quite a skill too, because you can ask questions. You have a very busy interactive audience. You can ask a question and nobody says anything, and it's not because they don't want to say anything. It's because you've asked a bad question. And sometimes, again, teachers and presenters are too impatient. They don't wait. And they start talking, filling up the gap. Yes, no. So there are all kinds of techniques which will assist in this great enterprise of helping people to learn. And in pharmacovigilance, I hope you've seen here at the UMC, we try very hard to follow good practice and to beat our speakers around the head and tell them to ask questions and interact and not, you know, all this sort of stuff. And year by year by year, I think we're beginning, I hope, to improve the quality of what we do. But all this idealistic stuff does apply to science and pharmacovigilance and to specific training of the kind that we need, as much as it does to kids in school or students in university or anyone else. And this whole business about engagement and connecting with where the audience is now and what they want and how we can help them get to where they do, this notion of helping people learn and achieve their goals in their life, I think is really the essence of our job. And I'm very grateful to you. I have the privilege of having terribly good students who are willing to take all this stuff seriously and ask questions and listen and care about it. And that's not always the case. So thank you very much for your attention. If your stomachs are rumbling, it's time for us to go to lunch. Thank you.